Welcome to our parent information sessions for Moving Beyond the Page. This is the first in a series of 8, and we'll go over that schedule in just a moment, but this is an introduction to Moving Beyond the Page. So we're going to cover quite a bit this first session, and it's some general information about what Moving Beyond the Page is. First, a little housekeeping about customer service. The best way to get your customer service answers is to call or email our customer support team, which is myself and Angela D'Antonio. You can call us at 888-316-8242 and choose option 2. Or you can email us at support@movingbeyondthepage.zohodesk.com. And we try to get to those emails within 24 hours. We work and answer the phones 8 to 5 Central Time. I work in the mornings. And Angela D'Antonio works in the afternoons. And so somebody's always answering the phone 8 to 5. So here's the Angelas: myself, Angela Backer, and Angela D'Antonio. Angela D'Antonio is actually our West Coast curriculum specialist. So if you've ever been out to any of some of the conferences that we've attended pre-COVID, you might have seen her at our booth or giving presentations. And we're homeschool moms who have been using Moving Beyond the Page. Both were starting about our 7th year, I think. We have kids who are similar ages as well. And we both used Moving Beyond the Page before we started answering customer service questions about Moving Beyond the Page. So we have a lot of collective knowledge about how to use the curriculum, what's appropriate, and we love talking to parents. So when you give us a call, you're talking to an actual homeschool mom who is using it that day. I've still got 2 at home that are homeschooling, and she's got 2 as well. And we love helping you work through what your questions are, whether it's about where your package is, or that you've ordered, or if it's what do I use. What's appropriate? How do I combine things for my kids to do collaborative learning? We've got a lot of experience with that, and we love visiting with you. So please call us with any questions. We're happy to talk on the phone with you. It's what we do. So a little bit about the sessions going forward. So today is an introduction. So we're going to cover methodology, curriculum structure, and whether it's a good fit for your kiddo. Next week is a very important session on how to choose a level. That is basically, if you choose the right level, you can find great success in Moving Beyond the Page. And we'll go over how to use those math placement questionnaires, those language arts placement assessments, and really walk you through how to figure out what's best for your kid. On June 23rd, we're going to do a day in the life. So that's going to show you what a day looks like, what a day of lessons looks like, stretched out to a week at various age levels. So you'll know what to expect, what to expect for your year and how you can structure your day. Then I get lots of questions. Angela and I both get tons of questions about how to homeschool multiple kids at the same time. And it's a good question. And there are strategies you can use to employ collaborative learning with Moving Beyond the Page that are really beneficial. And we're going to go through that on June 30th. And then starting in July, we're going to start off with explanation over our online curriculum. Last year, we started including complimentary online curriculum with a hard copy purchase. And that proved to be wildly popular and very useful for everybody. So we're going to show you how to get into that, suggestions for how to best implement that. And if you're buying just the online curriculum, you'll see how to put that into practice as well. Then we're going to go over learning gates, spelling, and math. Our learning gates spelling is different than most spelling programs. We've flipped it on its head, as they like to say. So spelling, it's adaptive assessments that your child takes. So you're not drilling the same words they know over and over again. And math, the same thing. Once you hit the right answers for a set of problems, we're moving on to bigger and better things. And we'll show you how to get that set up and how best to use learning gates. The last 2 sessions are going to be over grades and reporting and let's get organized. Those are basically general information sessions for people who for people who just need information about homeschooling in general. Grades and record keeping, we've got, a blog post about that. We'll kind of go over what our, some of our ideas about grade keeping, especially in the younger levels, but, kind of go over where to find what's required of you if you're required to keep certain records and grades. And then we'll also go over on the last week, we'll talk about how to keep all of this organized, because if you order from Moving Beyond the Page, and if you've ordered from us before, you get a great big box full of all kinds of books and manipulatives and activity pages, and it's you need to figure out how to get that structured and set up to get your year started. So and that's good for anybody, no matter what you're using, no matter what homeschool journey you're on. Getting organized is a good session to go to. So just a quick check. Oh, you guys were so helpful when I called in. I'm so glad, Jennifer. I'm so glad to read that. Thank you. We always love to know that our talks are appreciated. So we're going to get started on what is Moving Beyond the Page, right? Essentially, Moving Beyond the Page is a complete homeschool curriculum that is for creative, hands-on, and gifted learners that integrates language arts, science, social studies, and math for kindergarten through middle school, plus 1 year of high school language arts. So what that looks like is one day your child may be reading a biography about Helen Keller while building a 3D model of an ear and learning about sound waves. And as you can see, one of the big words in our description is integrate. We integrate the subject matter using beautiful literature and manipulatives. So that is the best way to describe Moving Beyond the Page, I think. One thing to note is in the earlier levels, you're going to want to add a reading program to round out those ELA standards. And we offer ABCDarian for sale on our site, levels A and B. And those are usually used with our age 5 to 7 or our age 6 to 8 levels. Moving Beyond the Page is written for gifted, creative, and hands-on learners. And what that means is we're going to introduce things at an accelerated pace. Bright kids need to move quicker. You get bored. We're not drilling the same worksheets over and over again. We're moving on. We're learning new things. We're touching on new subjects. And that's what accelerated pace means. It's a higher degree of difficulty overall. It's a rigorous program. If you're looking for something to really challenge your child, Moving Beyond the Page is a great way to do that. And when leveled correctly, everyone can find success with Moving Beyond the Page. We're big about deepening understanding. Bright students, and really all students, like to ask the how and the why questions. And those are the questions you ask to get to deep understanding, right? So when we're exploring this deep understanding, one of the things we do is we organize by concepts. And we'll touch on that in just a minute in more detail. We give our bright, gifted, and creative kids opportunities to fail. And that kind of sounds scary for some parents because, success is very important for all of us, for our kids. But when you provide them a moment where they don't breeze through an activity, or you provide them a problem that they're going to have to think creatively to get around and make a solution and problem solve, you're going to be pushing them to their highest potential. And that's why those opportunities to fail are important. There are a lot of gifted kids that coast through education because they're never challenged. And then when they meet a real challenge, they have a hard time because they don't have the skills to work through those challenges. We do less review and more new material. And that's extremely important because our bright students get bored if you're doing the same thing every day. So you're going to see also not just new material and new skills being introduced regularly. You're going to see different types of activities that keep them on their toes. They're not going to be bored doing the same thing every day. Let's see, just checking in on questions. Okay, moving on. Oh, and one thing to note, most learners benefit from gifted strategies like these. This isn't just for gifted students that are gifted identified. Almost everyone can benefit from this. Everyone needs to be reaching their full potential. Everyone needs their creative and critical thinking skills stretched. And that's just something important to note. So we start with standards. We don't stop with standards though. First of all lessons in Moving Beyond the Page are based on state and national standards. And on our website, you can find in each age level, the appropriate, all the standards that are covered for that age level, especially, from language arts and math particularly, but the other standards as well. One thing to know is that when you have your book open every day for each lesson, you're going to see those skills listed on the getting started section of the activities for the day. So you're going to see that they're learning to represent verbal statements of multiplicative comparisons as multiplication equations. That sounds like a mouthful, but that's what, standards say, are some of these boring, very academic, statements, things that you need to cover. We make sure they're covered, and we show in each activity or in each lesson that they are covered. And so you can be confident that your kids are learning everything they need to learn. Standards are just the minimum though. We want to encourage higher level thinking and problem solving to develop a love of learning. And that's really important. And how we do that is we use exceptional literature. This is just a smattering that I'm showing down here of the beautiful, just time-tested and new books that we integrate in our curriculum. And that's what makes Moving Beyond the Page work, and it's what makes it shine. Some people have a misunderstanding about what concepts are, what Common Core standards are, and what state and national standards are. We are not beholden to the standards to choose certain books or even to teach things a certain way. What we do is we make sure that they know the skills that they are required to know, but we introduce them in beautiful literature-based ways. And this is just a great example of all the books that we use, which are always really beautiful. Also, everything is kind of umbrellaed under these concepts. And concepts are kind of like themes, but they're better than themes. And the way I describe it is, typical curricula will introduce themes like bears or winter or apples. And then you'll learn lessons about apples, red, the color red, A is for apple, those sorts of sections. And those are great. But if you're teaching bright kids and you're really wanting to push critical thinking skills and big ideas and big questions, you're going to want to use concepts. And concepts are abstract and they're timeless and they are universal truths. And abstract in a way like we talk about things like interdependence, cycles, relationships, and change. Change is a really big one that we cover in multiple age levels. We cover all concepts in multiple age levels, but change is a great example. So this is a picture from our 5 to 7 age level talking about change. A 6-year-old can understand that change happens when people grow. They understand that environments change, or leaves on trees change and rivers change, and they can see plants grow and they can see people grow. And so they understand change on a very basic level. Seasons change, that sort of thing. So we're doing lessons under the big umbrella idea of change. And then we revisit change again and build on our idea of change in our 7 to 9 level, where we're going to talk about how environments change while we're studying Morning Girl, how communities change while we're studying communities and culture, how people change the world while we're studying American heroes. So this idea of change gets bigger, it gets more abstract as we go along, and it keeps introducing those big ideas. In our 10 to 12 unit, we start talking about how matter changes while reading Tuck Everlasting. And we talk about the civil rights movement and how Civil change happens while reading Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And then you're going to start talking about chemical changes while reading The Giver. Change, you see, is a big overarching universal truth that just gets bigger and bigger as you grow. And when you start when they're young and then you carry it on, some really magical connections start getting made. So it's really important that we introduce things in that way so we can think about big ideas and not just A is for apple and apples are red. So, okay, moving on to every learner is unique. And that is a huge, huge part of moving beyond the page. Every learner is unique. And that means we have to make differentiated curriculum for them. So we have to make sure that that curriculum is going to reach everybody where they need to be reached. Because everyone has different learning styles, and they also have multiple intelligences. So you've got kiddos who are, maybe they are just really great at hands-on learning, or kids who are just really great at reading and writing, or maybe they're just somebody who can see everything. They're visuospatial learners. So we try to hit all of those, and I'm going to give you a few examples as we go through right now. Sometimes kids need a challenge, and that's where differentiation comes in. So you've got, especially if you're using this with more than one student, this is a really great example. But we designed our curriculum that in such a way that if your child needs a push in an activity, you've got it and it's already there for you. So this is from the BFG. This is a vocabulary activity. And as you can see, these look like the same activity, and it's because they basically are, just one's a little bit more difficult. And you can see here, this one says activity 3, option 1. And the option 1s are generally just the more standard activity. You can see here that this is about filling in the blanks for this paragraph. And you've got words like aghast, petrified, cloak, dexterity, vanished, ingenuity, flinched, and broach. And so, you know, it's still a really good, challenging activity. You go through, you read the paragraph, and you fill in the blank with the correct word. And that's a really great activity. But say your child is going to breeze through this and it's not going to challenge them. Say there's somebody who uses words like aghast, petrified, dexterity, and vanished in everyday conversation. Well, then you might want to give them the option 2, which is where they're going to come up with their own paragraph. And if your child maybe is working on their writing skills and you're ready to push those writing skills a little further, this would be a good one to encourage that they do instead of the option 1, because then they can keep working on writing good paragraphs and coming up with the correct usage for these vocabulary words, which is really important. So for our hands-on learners, moving beyond the page does a wonderful job because there are so many activities. I'm just checking my questions again. There are so many hands-on activities in especially science. Science has, I mean, if you've ordered from us before, you know, you get the science kits. It's got everything you need for experiments and little inventions and things. And this is an example from our 9 to 11 curriculum. During in the energy unit, they're going to build a calorimeter. So they get to put a calorimeter together, and warning, this does take some parent supervision because you're going to burn some things. But they put the calorimeter together, so they're using their hands-on, and kids that were really into kinesthetic learning, they need that tactile sensation and the motions of doing it to really drive it home, right? So they're going to build the calorimeter, and then after they built the calorimeter, they get to test and find the calories in a marshmallow and a peanut, which is rad to me. You know, I would have eaten this up as a child. So that's a really cool example of how you're going to be doing a lot of hands-on activities to drive things home. Sometimes our science, the day is mostly doing little activities like that, and they learn more doing those things than they do reading a book and writing down definitions or whatever. And you know, that has its place and that's fine, but I mean, think of what this means. I've never seen a calorimeter before. And I don't know that I ever made one in school, but my kids have, though. And so we got to have that experience as a family. And I thought that was really neat. For our visual learners, I mean, we offer a lot for our visual learners as well. So most activities have, if they've got great illustrations, graphs, graphics. We also try to, where appropriate, include a YouTube video if they need to watch a video on how to maybe do a certain math section, or that plays a song that kind of gets something stuck in their head, and or other kind of little visual aids to make sure that points are driven home for our visual learners. But some of our manipulatives and books are really great examples as well. So like we have the history timelines are great visuals. And with the history timeline, it comes with these colored timeline cards that shows like civilizations and time periods, and they're taking the card and they're putting it in the place in history, and you can just see time and what civilizations were doing what at what time, even the ones that were doing things at the same time that, is kind of hard for us to wrap our brains around, right? It's hard to imagine that, such and such was going on in ancient China at the same time such and such was going on in Europe. A lot of us just kind of dissociate those things. And I think that really brings history to life for a lot of kids. Social studies is one of those things that I think this kind of stuff really brings it to life for kids. Then we have books like Me on a Map, which shows kids, what life looks like when they're in their room, in their house, in their neighborhood, in their city, in their state, in their country, in the world, in the universe. It's a great visual for kids who can't just cerebrally get that. You want to see it. A Street Through Time, that's one of my favorites. I love looking through that book. And it just shows what's happening in history through each page, and you just get to see a city street and all the wonderful things that are happening, and another really good visual. And that's just small examples of what visual learners have in store for them with moving beyond the page. I see. Okay, so I'd love to hear thoughts on doing the units out of order. We have a beach trip in August that would go perfectly. Somebody keeps texting, I can't see. Okay, would it be a terrible idea to start our year with concept 2 and then go back to concept 1? You know what? I don't think so. And most people would agree with me. If you've got a life event coming up, like a really good example of this is we're planning a trip to Washington, and I want us to be studying, some of these big American history moments when we go to Washington. And so we did some things out of order during the election cycle. We were studying the elections and the branches of the government and how that works during the election cycle. And so I kind of rearranged some things so that way my daughter would know what was happening in real time and be studying it at the same time. And it makes it meaningful. Absolutely use this to the way you want to use it. I think that that's perfectly good, and I would encourage that for sure. And then, okay, my son was so excited to learn and use his hands and not be bored or do worksheet after worksheet. He's already talking about next school year. I'd love to see that. So glad to see that. Oh, here we go. Trying to see more comments here. Yeah. And then other people using the units out of order and it worked for them. Yes, absolutely. Use the units out of order. I think that's totally okay. I encourage it. Especially if you've got something that's going to be meaningful that you're connecting in your life to a concept or a unit that's coming up, absolutely do it. Absolutely do it. I think that's wonderful. That's the great part of homeschooling, right? Why do it if you can't make it what you want it to be? Angela made a good comment. They may want to make sure to use units that go together even if they're not in order. So one important thing to know is that we have units that are written together. Like I would say, like in our 7 to 9 unit, you've got tornado, about the dog and the tornado and everything, and then you're studying weather at the same time. You're not going to get that interconnectedness of the curriculum if you don't use the corresponding units. So while you can do them out of order, I would still keep the pairs together or the triplets, because as you get older, there's going to be 3 units at a time. But much older. But yeah, if you're doing, make sure you keep your corresponding units together to get the full impact of the interdisciplinary nature of the curriculum. Yeah, so I'm just checking some more, just want to make sure I don't miss anybody's comments or questions. For a gifted child who is several years advanced, are the social studies curriculum designed to be able to jump into it without having studied it previously and only in advanced reading comprehension and writing skills? No, our social studies isn't designed in a way that you can't start a unit when you are ready to start a unit. There's not a whole lot of back work you have to do. But I would say, okay, without having, and only in advanced reading comprehension and writing skills. So if they have advanced reading and writing comprehension skills, they're already going to be set up to do well with moving beyond the page. We'll talk about age leveling more next week, where they need to be placed, but I would say that if you go in now and take those placement assessments, make sure that you pay particular attention to the writing portion of the assessments, because if they're struggling in their writing, they're not going to do so well with the rest of it. That's just facts. But okay, grading, we'll get more into grading in a few weeks, but overall grading is up to you. We don't have a grading system in place, and we don't have a particular one that we recommend, but grading is up to you. It's up to the parent and what is required by your state. I'll touch more on that later. Okay, moving on with reading, writing learners and auditory learners. So if you've got kids who just love words, they just devour every book, and they want to write stories, and they're writing poetry, and they're, just want to write in their journal all the time. Almost every lesson has reading and writing questions, and those are, it's giving them a chance to read all this literature that you're getting, which is really important. This is a literature-based curriculum, but they've got a couple of ways they can answer their questions. And I think a mix of both is what's ideal for most people, no matter how they lean. But so as you can see, the first activity on the left-hand side is from The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And they're supposed to read a couple of chapters, or you're reading to your child. I always recommend, though, if your child is reading, to both read together and let them read some. Don't, it says read aloud to your child. You don't, if they want to read it too, that's okay. But the first question is, what was the name of the ship they were going to sail on? Well, that's a pretty standard reading comprehension question, right? You want to know that they caught the name of the ship. But here's what's wonderful about moving beyond the page, because I believe this is in the 6 to 8 level. So this is your younger kiddos, your 7-year-olds. Why do you think Pellegrino wanted Edward to listen to the story? Well, that's a big idea question. That is a critical thinking question. That's not gonna just, it's why do you think it is suggesting that, maybe the answer isn't just explicit in the text, right? They're going to have to think about it, and they're going to have to draw some conclusions and have some big ideas come up. And when you're doing these questions, I recommend that when you're learning to write, that you really encourage your child to write out some of their answers, but also remember that if they get their thoughts together better in conversation, to let them do that too. So do a mix. So that way you guys are having conversation about what's happening, but also they're given the chance to write out answers and practice those writing skills and coming up with good writing practice. But also remember that they may not answer all of these, handwritten. Sometimes that takes time, and sometimes you just need to go over it audibly. Sometimes there are kids who just get their thoughts together better up here, and they can write it down, and that's how they best express themselves. I'm one of those people. I express myself best when I'm writing things out, and so I always wanted to write out every answer even before I gave it. As you get older, as you can see, this other example on the right hand side is from Animal Farm, and their questions are big too. Like, what caused the hens to protest, and how was their protest put down? These are big kind of social questions that are getting, so why do you think they did this? And so you're going to have, you're going to have your child who, even older, they're probably getting to, if they're a reading writing student, they're going to want to write this stuff down and really get their thoughts together. But also I encourage you to have conversations about these reading questions, if you can sometimes. That way you guys can kind of engage in a little debate or a little conversation about what they're reading, because at this level, they're working very independently. And so this gives you a good chance to check in and see how they're doing with the critical thinking questions. And also just remember that some kids just think better out loud. And so having a conversation works best. Okay, I see a pinned comment. Okay. Do you have plans to add more high school? For instance, history with literature would be great. I wish I had a concrete answer for you. I have one that just graduated high school, and she used our one level of high school one, and then we had to find other things. And then I've got one that's starting our 12 to 14 age level next year. Angela D'Antonio does as well. She's got two that are going to be starting that level. And so we were hoping that we would have more answers on the language arts, but right now we just have the one level. We have inklings of ideas for further levels, but nothing is concrete, and there are no solid plans in place. So I wouldn't necessarily just bank on that at this moment. So we've been, one thing that we've been doing is we've been rolling out our math, right? So just last year, 9 to 11 math came out. And so that's one thing that they've been focusing on, so we could round out the rest of our curriculum and make it really complete from K through middle school. I'm glad. So all of these comments are noted, and we're going to let the appropriate people know that you guys are just really hungry for high school. I know, like I said, I understand. And as a literature fanatic myself, I love this curriculum, and I was a lover of it before I came to work here. And I love their language arts lesson. I love their language arts curriculum the most. It's the best that I've found. So I understand you guys. Let me see. If Phoebe's listening, some of these comments I was going to try to answer live, and so when you link on it, I can't see the question as easily, but that's okay. Social studies too. You want social studies too? Is that what you're saying, Lakshmi? We're noting for sure. Okay, the next we'll go over is how we approach things in a project-based learning way. At the end of most units is a final project, if not every single unit. But all the projects look a little different. They require different things. So you're going to be seeing, like in our 8 to 10 level, the very first unit is a Little House in the Big Woods, and their final project is to put on a family pioneer night. And this is where you're going to really see your child have to start learning to plan and prepare and then execute a project. And as you can see here, we've got our preparing for Pioneer Family Night page, and we've got our Pioneer Family Night checklist. And this is where you're going to start teaching your kid, okay, this is what you have to do, and this is what you did. So those are skills that you need to be introducing so your kid can start really doing some serious problem solving, right? And creative problem solving. Like, I have to do this project, this presentation, this, I have to go through this process. And so we start really showing them how to do that effectively. So preparing for Pioneer Family Night, the first thing is make dinner for your family using recipes that call for fresh ingredients. Make a list of foods to prepare. So the point of this is to use fresh ingredients like they did in the Pioneer days to prepare a meal for your family. Not to say that you can't throw a box of Kraft mac and cheese in there if you want to, but the point is to kind of drive home that they had to bake fresh bread and they had to use fresh vegetables, or they had to use, very primitive ingredients to make food. And if you guys can push it there, just depending on everyone's skill level, we don't want to make this, we're not trying to make this stressful for anybody. It's supposed to be fun, but that will kind of embody that. And that's a kinesthetic thing. And it's also just fun and you get to eat food. Look over the directions for the orange clove decoration and gather the materials that family members will need for the craft. So you get to make an orange clove decoration. Those smell amazing, by the way. And I love doing this again. And at Christmas time, we started making these after we started doing this final project because it was so fun. So your child's going to learn how to, gather supplies and then lead a craft. And then select 2 or 3 of your favorite sections from the book and practice reading them aloud, and be ready to explain why they are your favorites. And that is a great, like, our kids who love to read aloud and they're all about the books and they want to tell you all about their favorite part of the book, this is where they're going to shine in the project. Select a song you can play on an instrument or sing for your family. So kids who their brains really light up with a little musicality, doing a dance would even be appropriate. And remember, you can take these activities and tweak them to make them fun for you and your family. Not everything has to be just exactly as it's described. You can tweak things to make it work for you. Like I said, that's one of the beautiful things about homeschooling. So if your child doesn't play an instrument and just really hates the idea of singing, maybe, find some old dances and dance to old-timey music or something like that. Be ready to tell your family about the importance of stories in Laura's family, and prepare a story to tell your family members. And so if your child likes to make up stories and do kind of tell the stories they make up, that's another place for them to shine. So you can see in this project, there are many different places that kids who are different types of learners and different types of students can really shine. And then the checklist is a place where they can mark it all off. And we're starting to introduce the idea of a rubric of this is what's expected of you and this is what you got accomplished. I'm going to check in with the questions. Are these summer sessions being recorded to re-watch later? Yes. I don't know exactly where they're going to be posted. I know we're going to keep them on our Facebook page, but they may be available other places as well as we get that figured out. Wondering if this is... So... Let's see. What about spelling and grammar? I've heard that these may be weaker areas of the curriculum. I'd like to know how you address these things in curriculum. So our spelling is in Learning Gates, and it is a different type of spelling. So instead of drilling the same spelling words, for a week, your child is introduced to a quiz first, and what they get right, they don't have to see much again. And then what they get wrong is what they're going to practice and see again over and over in adaptive spelling tests. I'll get more into that though during our Learning Gates session. Grammar, I disagree. That is not a weak part of the curriculum. That's actually one of the shining parts of the curriculum, in my opinion. As a English literature, that's my background, is English literature and creative writing. And I'm telling you that the grammar is stellar. Now, we're not diagramming sentences all week long the same way. We do a constructivist approach where you learn a skill and then you're going to spiral back to that skill, but you're going to be using it in real time as we do that. And so, no, I disagree that that's not a weak area. I think that's one of the strongest areas of the curriculum for sure. Yes, but this will be recorded. A spin would be a Rory story, cube story. That's a really great idea. That's a really great idea, Jessica. Amanda, I love the final project ideas. So fun. They are so fun. They are so fun because, and here's what's important about project-based learning. You're going to be seeing in real time what they've actually absorbed from the unit. So if they didn't really get much out of it, or they coasted, or if they just really missed the mark on something, you're going to see that when they're having to make a project about it. And you're learning while you're doing. That's the part about projects that's so perfect, is you're learning while you're still learning while you're doing the project. You're not just testing what you had learned before. Let's see. Let's see. Thank you. Yes, Angela, you're right. Grammar is often introduced at older ages because we want to make sure they get it, right? We're really busy teaching critical thinking skills in the earlier ages. And so, yeah, sometimes it seems like the grammar gets introduced a little bit late, but I'm telling you, I have 3 kids, and they're great writers and they're wonderful readers. And I attribute most of it, not just to me, but to moving beyond the page. I think they do a really good job. Yes, and learning life skills too. Absolutely. Life skills are absolutely every bit a part of what makes homeschooling wonderful, as well as homeschooling with moving beyond the page. So yes, life skills are super important. So we're going to move on to some of the older age projects. That's when you're going to see more writing projects, more big kid projects, that you're going to maybe see employed more in like a college setting, like writing a good literary response paper. So here's a good example of the rubric that you would use to score your child's literary response to The Hobbit. And as you can see, we give you give them a number of stars for how well they did a certain aspect of their writing. So at the top, the writing is incomplete, well-written sentences that clearly and purposely address the topics of the paragraphs. If they did that and they did it well and you were really impressed, you're going to give them 3 stars. But then if you go all the way down to the 1 star, is incomplete sentences that to some degree address the main ideas of the paragraph. Well, they kind of were missing the mark. Not going to give them full marks for that, right? Ideas, skip down a bit. Ideas are supported with several specific examples from the text. So this is where you're really teaching your child, like when you write a literary response or you have, thoughts on a literary work, you have to back it up. Did they back it up? Or ideas are not well supported by the examples from the text. So we have a lot of parents that call us and go, I don't know how to grade a paper. I don't know what to look for. I'm not good at this. We give you the rubric. And not only do you get to use the rubric, the child needs to see the rubric so that they can see, okay, this is what is expected of me. Just like in any, situation, we give you rubrics for a reason so that you know what to look for, because we don't expect everybody to know how to do everything all the time. None of us are an expert in any of these subjects. None of us, no homeschool parent is. And so that's why these resources are so important. And then it goes on down to even like, includes a variety of sentence types like compound and complex sentences, contains no run-on sentences, punctuated correctly, and so those are things where we're hitting on, did you just do the basics? Did you think of the big ideas? Did you support your ideas? That's all included in the rubric, and you can look through that as much as you need to. And in this project, they're even given a literary response outline so they can see, this is how I need to structure my paper. This is how I need to structure my writing and my ideas. And so we're basically, this is how you write and this is how you grade. And also at the older levels, we're going to start introducing, as you can see to the right side, some unit tests that test more, the basics, like who were these characters, Thorin, Bilbo, Gandalf, Smaug, and you get down to, what happened, describe what Bilbo did in each of these situations. So this is where you're checking for, understanding in the reading. And this is in our 7th grade or 11 to 13 levels. So they're really starting to write some good stuff at the later levels, and it's important. Okay, so I'm going to go. Thank you for the rubrics. Okay, so I see. Thank you for the rubrics. There is some form of rubric in most of the big projects. Even if it's like I said, like in the 8 to 10 with the Pioneer Night, you can use that checklist as a bit of a rubric and kind of say, you did this, but you didn't handle that, or you didn't really plan this very well. So, but I don't think there's a particular age where the rubrics begin to show up, but they're just kind of smattered throughout in a way. But they're more obvious in the older levels that really require a lot of deep thought. How much writing can be involved and integrated into the social studies curriculum, or does it rely solely on the ELA curriculum for the writing? There's writing all across all of it, even in science. So writing and reading are the soul of the curriculum, in my opinion. Now, that's very hands-on as well, but though there's writing involved all throughout, and especially in social studies, for sure. That's definitely a subject that you're going to see a lot of writing response required. Okay, when they say approximate answers, how is this graded? No right or wrong answers. So how do we know as mentors or teachers? So that's a hard question to ask, because there's an expectation that you at least know where to look for where the answers will be. And approximate answers are things like, you will use The Hobbit as an example. If they ask a question, do you think Bilbo enjoyed his journey? Well, I'm sure there are times in the journey he did not enjoy himself, when he was like close to death or was about to, there were people after him, or he had lost all of his food, or or when he discovered the ring for the first time, that might have been a high point. So sometimes he was enjoying himself and sometimes he wasn't. So sometimes there just aren't correct answers. And sometimes everyone needs to get comfortable with the idea that there's not always a correct answer to everything that you ask. Sometimes it's just a thought-provoking question. And that's what we mean by some of those. But if you have trouble with something, always reach out to us, and we will try to help you find the resources you need to help you along the way. Approximate answers are usually just, there's not a right answer. We expect that you kind of at least know where to Google to find information about something if you're not knowledgeable enough to make a good assessment of their answer. But also in the older levels, people don't know that there are parent overviews in the back that have answer keys. And that may be what you're referring to, is in the answer keys, it'll say approximate answers. And that's just another one of those, examples of, there just probably isn't a good answer for that. That's just one right answer. Go up a little bit more. Learning. Okay, I think we're back to. Let's see. Okay, I see. How labor intensive are each of the levels, meaning at the 11 to 13 or 10 to 12 level? Are all lessons super hands-on for the parent? I fully expect to be involved with every subject, but would like my boys to learn more independence. That you're in luck with those levels, because starting in 9 to 11, everything starts being written to your student, and you become more of a proctor, as it were. You're just there to guide and check in. But all the lessons are written to them. So instead of, the scripting at the beginning, like in the earlier levels, tell your child they're about to learn about geology and, and the little scripting that goes along with that, that's no longer present. And it is written as, you're about to learn about, the lithosphere. Open your this and this book to page whatever and start reading about this. And then it gives them questions, and then it directs them on what activities to do. And I see my teenager not that much during the day. she and I do kind of check-ins throughout the day because she's focused and she's working independently. And I think that those levels are absolutely, you're going to be working, you're going to have very independent learners at that level. And that's what they should be doing, because part of homeschooling and what's really important about homeschooling is learning how to learn, not just learning how to follow directions from a instructor. So, and an instructor. So yeah, definitely very independent at those older levels for sure. Let's see. Yeah. So like Lakshmi just said, my daughter did them almost completely on her own. I didn't even set up much of the time for it. Yeah, exactly. My kids have started making their own schedules, and they know what subjects they do best early in the morning and what they can leave to in the afternoon, and how much time some of these activities take. They've really taken control of their learning on, in these higher levels. Oh, yeah, good share about the What About Grades blog. Yes, and we are going to have a session on that. I just purchased the 5 to 7, 8 to 10 curriculums for my first and fourth grader, and I'm really excited. Oh, I'm so excited for you, Jen. I'm telling you, it's so exciting to get that homeschool mail. Okay, we're going to move on and quickly talk about where to find packages. So if you've never bought, here's a little information about where to find stuff and what it is. So when you go to our webpage, it looks like this, and you can see read broadly, think deeply, learn creatively. That's the mantra. Okay, we're reading a lot and we're thinking about big questions, and we're going to be creative in our learning. So that's what we're starting with. So you're going to hit that shop button first if you're looking at packages. So this is just looking for packages. We're going to go way more in depth about age levels and all that later on in these sessions. But once you hit that shop button, it's going to pull down this menu, and you're going to be able to navigate to full year packages by age level. So if you're interested in the age 4 to 5, which can be used for kinder or pre-K. So it's not just for 4-year-olds. That's another thing I want you to understand. The lower age number is the advanced kiddos. So if you have a super advanced 4-year-old who's ready to start kindergarten, then they can use the age 4 to 5. That's not the higher end. The higher end of the spectrum. So you see in the age 8 to 10, my 10-year-old used age 8 to 10 this year, and she's very bright, and she's quick. But this was the appropriate level for her. If you have a super bright 8-year-old though, they could start using the age 8 to 10 as well. Okay. And then you get up to the 12 to 14. Some of those books that you see in the age 12 to 14 are pretty serious books, like To Kill a Mockingbird and Animal Farm. So some people use that on up into 9th grade, and then they use High School 1 as either 9th or 10th grade. I will mention though, the High School 1 does have Shakespeare in it, like Romeo and Juliet, which is a pretty standard freshman lesson, or unit. So just something to think about there, but that's all up to you and what is required in your area. You can also look at 9-week and semester packages. Our 9-week packages, those are concepts. So all those concepts that we talked about, those umbrellas of concepts, those are the 9 weeks, and you can purchase by concept if you would like to, or semester. You can also just get a single subject. So if you're only interested in our social studies, or you're only interested in our language arts, or you're only interested, you get the point. You can just purchase the subjects you want that way. And we have individual items, which is always, you can buy individual units, just individual 3-week units. You can buy just a manipulative if you need an extra, or a literature book to go with, a curriculum set that you had gotten elsewhere. That's okay. So that's where those are found. Oh, so when you click on an age level, so you would, I'm just going to check the comments real quick to make sure. Okay, yeah, my kids did most of 9 to 11 on their own, just needed supervision with some of the science. Yes, mine actually, she wrapped up her 8 to 10 early. She started the 9 to 11 already, and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to, I'm just a supervisor. I don't even know what I'm here for anymore. to drive her to swim practice. I think that's all. Let's see. Are each full year package meant to be used over the course of 1 year? Yes, each full year package is a year of study. So that is, and the 9 weeks, the 9-week concepts would be considered like a quarter, and the semester is a half year. So yes, it's intended to be a full year of instruction. Some parents, though, stretch it out. If you've got somebody who really needs to work on that level and continue on that level, some people stretch it out, and that's okay. It just depends on your situation. Some people breeze through it and get done early. I don't know how, but they do, and more power to them. That's wonderful, and then they move on. But it's intended to be at 1 year of instruction. Yes. So once you've been to that drop down menu under shop and you click an age level, we're going to use 7 to 9 as an example because we're running out of time. This is what the full year package page looks like for age 7 to 9, and it just kind of shows you the details there. As you scroll down the page, you can see there's information on what's covered, some links to samples. Another important thing to know, everything on our website almost is a clickable hyperlink. So if you see a picture of a book, which we're about to get to, or an underline or anything, those are clickable links. So we go over prerequisites. There's getting an overview video. But yeah, right here, where we get to the pictures of, you can click on every single one of these pictures and it'll take you to that individual item. And you can learn more about it and see it and have an explanation about it. And as you can see, so for age 7 to 9, this is a whole year of language arts, science, social studies, and math. All of the literature books that you need to cover these subjects, and all the manipulatives. So you see, the butterfly kit and the ear model and the owl pellet. It's all there, and all of these gorgeous books. Then as you keep scrolling down this page, you're going to see all of the other packages that you can get. So you can get online only. You can get, which is only online curriculum. You have to use the hard copy literature books and manipulatives to implement, but the curriculum's online. You can get curriculum only. So if you've got all the books and you can find all the manipulatives yourself, you can just purchase the curriculum, and that's fine too. There's consumables packages, which is for activity pages that your child has used up already, and a consumable for age 7 to 9 would be like the owl pellet. Once you open one up, you can't use it again, so we would replace that. So if you're purchasing again for a second student from a few years ago, definitely look into the consumables package. Drop us a line to make sure you're getting what you need. We don't mind going over it at all with you. You can not buy the math. You can just buy science, social studies, and language arts. We offer it that way because we didn't used to have math. And some people just implement something else. So you can buy a full package without the math. You can also buy full packages of just the individual subjects, like we talked about before. Under the individual subjects, there's even the readers that you can purchase. So if you just need an extra set of the language arts readers, for example, some people like to have an extra copy so they can read along with their child, or they can do family read-alongs. That's a great way to do that as well. Science and social studies. Under the About section, you can find more information about our methodology, how to choose a level, and learn about the different age levels. Learn about online and hard copy curriculum, which is exactly the same thing, just one comes online and one is in a book. Samples, getting started, and how to contact us. So if you were to click on the 7 to 9 age level under About, you're going to see this page, which gives just more information. It's more about the information and less about purchasing the product. So you're going to see, you do see a purchase link there, but there's bigger links to samples, getting started, placement tests, prerequisites. Read through those, go through those placement assessments. Those are very, very important. And again, we're going to go over that in detail next week. What's new? Sometimes things change, or we make a big change between levels. The 6 to 8 level and the 7 to 9 level are very, very different in how they're structured. You're no longer going to get the parent manual and the student manual. You're going to get individual unit books. There's a lot more spiral bound books for age 7 to 9 than there were in 6 to 8. So every time you buy a new level, I really encourage you to read through the about sections of these age levels, so that way you get a really good idea of what might have changed from year to year, because as your child grows, the way they learn needs to grow as well. And so that's how that, and then like I mentioned before, 9 to 11 goes from a bunch of information that's written to the parent to information that's written to your student, and your parent overview is at the back of the book for you to take out and keep with answers and overviews and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big difference. So between each age level, make sure you read and understand that the design of them does change a little bit sometimes as your child's needs change. This is the summary of skills. So you can see all of the skills that are going to be covered, the standards that are going to be covered in this age level. That's going to be found on that About page as well. So that's a really good resource. How it's aligned with Common Core. Don't be scared by that Common Core word. It just means that's the standards. We light it up and we bring it to life. And moving beyond the page, don't be scared by that Common Core word. You can also find curriculum samples. I highly suggest that you don't just look at the hard copy sample. If you are buying hard copy curriculum, look at the online sample. It's going to give you a really good picture of what your day looks like. And how the whole lesson looks, not just the activity pages. So definitely check those out. This is just a quick look at what the 9-week and semester package page looks like. So you can order, as you can see here, you can order by 9 weeks, 9-week packages, and you can see how it's structured in concepts. So complete environment package. So the whole 9 weeks is going to have something to do with the environment, in their literature and their social studies and their science. The complete similarities and differences package. That's another big idea. That's another universal truth. There are always similarities and differences amongst the universe. Patterns, another really good one, and change, as we went over earlier. So that is all I have for that. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to ask great questions. I'll go through and see if there are any more questions I need to answer. Oh, that's great. Let's see. Yeah, so I'll just hang out for a few more minutes and see if anybody has any extra questions or anything. I'm happy to cover anything you guys want to talk about. Oh, I love Lakshmi's comment. I'm one of those that spread it out. Actually, that happened to me too. I wanted I wanted to use that curriculum a little bit longer, and so we just stretched it out over, I think it was used over a 1.5 year span. Is this Common Core aligned? It is Common Core aligned to the national standards. Yeah, so that is an important thing, because we want to make sure that your child's learning what they need to learn year to year. But the thing about that is to push it further than the Common Core. So that's just the bare minimum. Those are just the skills that they want covered throughout the year. We take it further than that. Thank you. Oh, yes. If a student doesn't love writing and struggles with the actual act of printing, can moving beyond the page still work? I think everybody can make it work. I think anybody can use it. I always use the example, I've got a child in my home who has dyslexia, and we've had to use, some techniques to get her going with her reading, and now she reads and writes way above, level, and is a wonderful writer. I think, there are all kinds of techniques you can use to bump that up. I will say it's writing intensive though. So if your child just is really averse to it, just definitely make sure they're at the right level. So that way they feel confident. I'm looking at myself instead of looking at you. I'm so sorry. So I see about how much time per day. Okay. So this varies from kindergarten to high school. It's going to be different. It's a difference between 2 to 3 hours and 3 to 4 hours, or 4 to 5 hours. And it really greatly depends on your child as well. We're going to go through a day in the life, and you guys can be a good judge of how long it will take your family to get through some of this stuff. I really encourage you to join that session, because it really does. I have one child who gets through with her work in 3 hours flat. Everything's done. And then I've got a child who is still in there at 7 in the evening, just toiling away on a writing project because she wants to make it perfect. You just can't know for sure, unless you see the material, and you can be a good judge of how long it takes. But I can say that confidently that you have your day. I mean, it's not 8 hours worth of work or anything like that. Let's see. Thank you so much for doing this. We're excited. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for coming and listening. Please come back again. I love talking to you. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let me see what else. Yes, if you weren't able to join us on time, we will be posting this video for you to watch later. And thank you for all your great questions. We will see you next week. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day. Okay. Bye.